Hello friends, I just received this question. Is it possible to build a rule to send an email when a tagged customer or customers haven't ordered for a certain period of time? The answer is absolutely yes. The slightly longer answer is I don't know how yet, but Mechanic can definitely do all this stuff individually, and I'm sure that we can combine it to make a task that works. So we're going to figure out what to do here. We're going to say send a staff, and I did follow up with them separately. It's a staff notification. We're not emailing the customer. Send a staff notification when a customer, customers, this is going to be a really long title and we'll figure it out later. When customers having a certain tag haven't placed an order within a configured interval. Wow. All right. This title is not going to stay this way, and I'm probably going to learn some things about how long task names show up in the UI here. But here's how this is going to work. So the right event to use here is going to be in one of two categories. We're either going to respond to an order event, or we're going to respond to a schedule. And the logic for that is that, well, to explain the first one, what we could do is say, cool, we'll set a timer after every order creation, let's say. Let's say we care about a customer having placed an order or a customer not having placed an order within 2 weeks. So if we started with something like this, we could just say, okay, cool, whenever an order comes in, set a timer for 14 days. If nothing else has come in within those 14 days, then send an email. That would work, but it would be operationally complicated. And what I mean is that we would end up with scheduled events for every single order that comes in. And we would have to perform some kind of synchronization. Like we would have to use the Mechanic cache probably to make sure that one order isn't sending an email and another order is sending an email. Because if somebody placed 3 orders in the same day and we waited for 14 days, we would, well, I think we'd probably only get 1 email in that case too, if we were being deliberate about our checks. But the fact that I'm having to think carefully about this tells me this is already a problematic route to take. This also gets a little bit annoying when the merchant is asking questions about like who am I expecting to get an email from, and also can I trigger this automatically, get an email right now about customers who haven't placed an order. So for all of those reasons, and also the general feeling of that feels complicated and messy, we're not going to take this route. And instead, we're going to say, we're going to send this email whenever somebody wants to get that email, and also probably on a schedule, something like that maybe. And what we'll do instead here is, instead of checking the customer belonging to a specific order after a configured interval after that order was created, what we'll instead do is query for all customers who haven't placed an order in that time period, and we'll go from there. So the first thing that I'm going to do is ask some questions about what we can access via the GraphQL API about either customers or the orders. Because if I can, I would like to query for customers based on their order data. I think the customer object has, we only need one of these. I think the customer object has an attribute for when their last order was placed. Let's find out. Cool, so we have last order. That's gonna give us an entire node. That's not something that I can query on probably. Yeah, okay, cool. So this we at least know, like we've got this. I can say, I'm pressing Command Enter by the way to execute this query. I know that at least I can pull back the most recent order for each customer and find out when it was created. So for this customer, for example, we know that their last order was created 6 days ago, something like that, not counting time zones. So that at least is something that I can work with. So now I know that what I could do is pull down a list of all of the customers and the created at time for their last order and do some quick math to find out which ones are in bounds, which ones are not, and then send an email containing that customer list. So we know this approach will work. I'm interested though in finding out if I can query for this kind of parameter. So I'm command clicking on query to pull up the documentation over here. And we have order date. That's interesting. It's not last order date. It's not even, yeah, it's just order date. Cool. Cool. So, I'm going to assume that means last order date. And let's play with it and see what happens. Let's find a customer that has a last order date of this. Cool. Let's do some quick Googling here. Shopify customers order date. Pardon my capitalization. Yeah, okay, so that seems right. This looks like somebody's asked a very specific, or a question that's basically the same. And they didn't get any help. Sorry, Mehul Patel. All right. Returns all customers that shopped. Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, okay, cool. So this is not something that we want. This looks like it's maybe a list of all order dates on the back end, like they're indexing every order date, which would make more sense given the name of the thing. It's not actually last order date. Okay. I'm going to say that Mehul knows what he's talking about, or what they're talking about, and we're going to not take that approach. We don't have anything else in here that works, does it? No. Okay, cool. So what we're going to do is pull down a list of customers with their last order date. So now we have a choice. What I can do is ask for 250 customers at once and paginate through all of these, involving a query cost of 502, which is half of our throttle quota. And then that'll vary based on shop, on how quickly that restores and what the quota was in the first place. Point is, this is a potentially large query. It only cost 8 units for us, I think because we only have 3 customers here, and only one of them has an actual order that could be traversed through. So where this is going is that I need to make a decision between whether I'm paginating through a list of orders, or if I'm shipping this off to Shopify to run as a bulk query. Bulk queries vary in runtime. I think this one should run pretty quickly because we're only looking at customers and then going to something that's immediately connected to a customer. So at most we're going to receive, like if we have 250 customers on file, we'll receive 500 nodes back, and that should be fine. In the background, I'm thinking, okay, this should run in an acceptably short amount of time for shops that have a small number of customers, and for shops that have a massive amount of customers, this should also be okay. Because if it's a massive number of customers, I'd rather run this through the bulk operations API anyway. So that was a lot of words. What we're going to do is use the bulk operations API. And then this will be the query that we actually need. Actually, let's also grab a couple more things from our customer. I removed this because when we send this off to the bulk operations API, we don't need to include this first parameter. But for our purposes, I want the display name, I want the email, and now you know my email address, and that's probably all that we need. So here's our query. I am going to open up our help center to grab some boilerplate. I think it's in the, let's start here, bulk operations. Do I have a sample? Here's where I need to go. Query in Shopify. GraphQL with bulk operations. Give me a sample. Yeah, okay, cool. So here's our sample. And this is the skeleton of the task script that we want to put together. We begin with if our event topic is a trigger or a scheduler, as we'll add in a minute. We'll capture our query to a string. We'll send it off to Shopify using this mutation. And then when it comes back with this event, we will then do something with it. So let's copy this, head back over here. And then let's grab our query. And again, we don't need this piece. Oh, come on. Our query is super similar to the stock example, which is nice and fun. Oh, when customers having a certain tag, we missed that part. Okay, so we do need to query for something. I can do this over here. we need to query for customers that have a certain tag. So query tag, I'm actually not going to do this way. Let's start here. Required JSON. All right, this is a lot of filter chaining, and what's happening here is that we are first quoting the tag itself, in this case AASDF. If I had special characters, they would be handled appropriately. That's a lot of escaping. What we're doing is escaping. We're formatting as JSON the required customer tag. Then we're prepending that with tag colon so as to ultimately arrive at something like that. And then we're formatting it as JSON so that this entire string can fit inside of our GraphQL query properly. And then we're formatting that entire query as JSON down here, which is why we have approximately 100 backslashes in place here. But all those JSON filters guarantee that what we're doing here is actually valid, so we're good to go. We're dispatching our bulk operation to Shopify, and when it comes back, it will come back here, and it will come back with a set of objects that we can actually use. So for the sake of seeing what we've got to work with, I'm going to just echo out the set of bulk objects, or bulk operation objects that we've got. I'll save this. Let's not do this daily yet. We'll save it. We have given Mechanic enough information via this preview action here for Mechanic to determine that we need access to customer data and also to order data. So it should ask us for both those things. Yep, we're looking for orders and we're looking for customers. We're gonna update the app. Side note, I'm pretty proud of that. I built Mechanic, and it's nice to have all of the permissions automatically requested and handled. I feel like that turned out really well. All right, moving on. We're gonna run this task, run. And then what we're seeing here is Mechanic saying, hey, you might not know what this means, so here's what this means. We just dispatched a bulk operation for Shopify, and when it comes back, the task will run again, and we'll have an event under children, which doesn't exist yet because we don't have our event yet. So while that's happening, let's go back to our task and start to play with what I anticipate will be coming back. And my screen happens to be wide enough that this is not a problem. Wonderful. All right. Action bulk operation objects. Okay, cool. So what we've got here, so what we will be receiving back from the bulk operations API, I'll scroll down so I can see when it comes in, is a set of objects. We can call them a set of nodes also. Some of them are going to be customers and some of them are going to be orders. And really, in this case, I was going to say we'll definitely always have one of each, but because of the way our query works, we could be receiving customers that don't have any orders. And that's a good point because we can do better than that. So what I could be adding also to our query is orders count is greater than or equal to 1. Yep, cool. If I remove this, we'll get back more customers because my test store only has 3. Cool. So we can do better with our query here and guarantee that we're only getting back customers that actually have orders. So I'm going to update our query with that. I like to be explicit about the Boolean operators in place here. The and is actually implicit. We don't actually need it. Stylistic thing. I prefer it. Save. All right, by now we've probably, we actually haven't received a result back from GraphQL. I'm a little surprised. If I run this again, it's going to return an error because you can only have one bulk operation running at once. Yeah, that's all good. So now we know that on subsequent runs of this, we will get back customers who definitely have orders placed, which means that what we could do is filter for only, filter through these objects for only objects that are orders, check those created at times, and then build up an email that contains information about the related customer. So that's the approach that I'm going to be taking here. Still haven't received our bulk operation yet. That's the approach that we're going to be taking here, and I'm going to start preparing for that now. So we're going to say assign order nodes equals. By the way, I've shifted capitalization here because we're getting back data that comes from GraphQL, and GraphQL is always camel cased. I think that's the right term. So instead of snake case like this, everything looks like that. And to reflect that, I shift capitalization schemes so that the liquid that I'm using looks like it belongs with the data that I'm using. So assign order nodes bulk operation dot objects and here's where we're going to add one more thing to our query. So GraphQL itself, type name, is that right? Yep. GraphQL itself has a property called type name, and it allows us to get back just the name of the node, or the name of the node type, the name of the object type. Not sure what word to use here. But having this here gives us a really easy way to quickly filter through all of the nodes that come back from a bulk operation. So by adding this, and I'll do that here for our customer object and here for our order object, by doing that, I get to quickly say, okay, cool. The order nodes is going to be the set of objects where type name equals order. And in a single line of liquid, I've now narrowed down our objects to just the things that are orders, which is perfect. So now what we're going to do is say, I'm actually going to scrap this because it's going to be a couple extra keys to press, honestly. So now what we're going to say is we're going to filter for just the orders that were placed more than a certain amount of time ago. We'll begin by creating an array of, just an empty array in which to place our orders. Actually, what we'll probably do is just be building up a list of customers. So let's say customers who have not placed, customers who, there we go, that's better. Qualifying customers. And then we'll say for order in orders. And here's where we get to do some date math. So we know that our order object is going to come back with a created at property, which contains the time in an ISO 8601 compatible format, which means that we can say assign order All right, here's what this is doing. We've now taken this order created at piece of data. We've formatted it using, well, what this means is giving back the number of seconds since the Unix epoch, aka the Unix timestamp. That's an integer value, but what comes back from the date filter is always a string, so we use ×1 to cast that to an integer. So what we've got here is a number in seconds, and that's something that we can actually work with. So now we need to decide whether or not this order qualifies. Let's close this. So what we can do here is figure out what our threshold is. Assign order time threshold s equals now. This is a special value. When you pass now through the date filter, we get back an Unix timestamp. And we can demonstrate that by throwing in a quick echo, which we should see. Oh, here's why we haven't gotten our result back. Our task doesn't actually subscribe to the bulk operation event. And I can't spell. There we go. Well, that's hilarious. Okay, cool. So here's our echo null coming from up here, and here's our echo with our timestamp. That's funny. This probably means that if I hit add filters and I deselect hide events that did nothing, I will see, oh no, it didn't even invoke the task because it was never subscribed. Cool, cool. So now we have this. I'm gonna go ahead and save this and run it one more time because I would actually like to get a bulk operation back. That's something that mechanics should probably warn us about. I'll make a note of that for later. Okay, cool. So that should come back in a minute, honestly. Okay, cool. So where were we? We were establishing our order time threshold. Let's give us a little more room to work with. So our threshold is going to be the current time minus an interval that the merchant actually configures. So what we're going to say is assign interval s equals, and we'll allow the merchant to configure this in days probably. Was that their initial question? A certain period of time. Days feels reasonable to me. Let's do that. Interval days? That's not a merchant-friendly description. Send and, let's see, include customers who have not placed an order in this many days. That's apparently our theme here is really long labels for things. Cool. So this will give us back a number. We know we have it because it is required. So if we multiply the number of days times 24 hours times 60 minutes times 60 seconds, we now have our interval in seconds, which means that our order time threshold can now be this minus, this. Cool. And to check our math here on this, what we can do is say action echo. I use a lot of echoes when I'm testing things. Interval, nope, threshold. And that should mean, nope, not valid. This option is missing. 50 days. If we scroll down, our threshold should be 50 days ago. And 50 is a weird number to do math with dates. So, yep, 30 days ago was October 16th. Perfect. Our math works. That's excellent. So we're going to take this echo out, noting the fact that we can actually do this because we will probably use this exact kind of construction in the email that we build later. So we're going to take our echo out, and specifically, we're going to check our order time, and we're going to say if order time s is smaller than our threshold, then our order qualifies. And then to include the customer in this array, not the order. Oh, how do I want to do this though? So here's my thought process. What I was going to do is just build up a list of customers and just include that list of customers in the email that we send out to staff. However, I'm thinking that it's probably going to be useful to include in the email some information about the order, like when it was and maybe what its number was, which means that we're going to modify this one more time and include the order name. Yeah, that feels better. So instead of qualifying customers, I'm going to say qualifying orders after all. So assign and at the end of this, we'll have a set of orders. Echo I'm going to be echoing out a bunch of stuff here because I want to do a run of the task that shows me everything that I've got. So we've got our set of objects, we have our set of orders, and then we have our set of qualifying orders. Yep. And this is just null because the Shopify, well, we don't actually have any test data in here. We do have some stuff coming back from, well, when Mechanic generates preview actions over here on the right, it uses the most recent event that it has on record for this particular store with this particular topic. You'll note that the objects property doesn't actually exist. We have object count, but not objects. The objects array is something that Mechanic builds for us automatically. It's a nicety to allow us to actually make practical use of bulk operations in this context. So our echo's up here. This is redundant because we are echoing the same thing down here. So let's go up, let's save it. I'm going to run it again, but first I'm going to see, yeah, cool. So bulk operation finished, and we got back null. Why did we get back null? Oh, object count equals 0. That's not what I expected to see. So null makes sense given that this is 0, but this is not what I expected to see at all. Orders count is greater than, oh, and the tag is ASDF. Cool. Sweet, well, that makes sense then. What tags does our test customer actually have? Doesn't have any tags. Let's go add a tag. I have GraphQL open, I could actually add it that way, but here we are, that's fine. And we wait. Of note. Save. Perfect. So that's the tag that we're going to have instead of ASDF. Save. Run task. All right, and that should come back in a minute as well. Actually, speaking of that, yeah, about a minute. So in the backend, mechanic checks for the completion of bulk operations once every minute. And it looks like these came back between, yeah, about a minute apart. So we'll have another minute before this actually returns. In the meantime, what is practical to work on right now? I suppose we can start building up our email. Our email should probably consist of a bulleted list of customers. I think I also want to include the customer's email address. Maybe. I know that I at least want to include a link to the customer in the, like a Shopify admin link. It doesn't look like there's a URL for that, so I'm going to include the legacy resource ID as well. And while technically I could pull this out of the customer ID, it's important not to think of these two pieces of data as actually being related, because Shopify has complete freedom to do whatever they want with this string. It's considered opaque. Whereas this is something that we definitely know is used to build URLs in the Shopify admin. We could wink at each other and say, yeah, no, these are definitely the same, but for the purposes of being actually correct with a capital C, we're going to take this route. So I will grab also the legacy resource ID from the customer, and I'm also going to grab it from the order so I can link up the order as well. I'm not sorting these by anything. It looks like I've accidentally sorted these alphabetically, which means I should probably do that here too. Except for this one, which we will actually leave at the end. Okay, cool. So we have our display name, our email, our ID, our legacy resource ID. Great. So what I'm going to do here is start building up my email to the staff person who is interested in receiving this email. So we'll say capture email body. Probably what I want to do is only send this email if there are any customers. Do we want that? Or should we always send an email on schedule if there were no customers? That feels like something that we should configure. If qualifying orders.size, let's do this. If it's not empty, then we'll send an email. If it is empty and, if it is empty and, come on, potions, options dot send email if no customers are found. Send email anyway, still send email, send email anyway. We can be informal about this. All right, cool. I feel happy about that. So capture email body. We can say hello. We're going to write this using HTML for reasons that I will explain in a second. Actually, no, let's do this the right way. And our syntax highlighter has given up. Hello, the following wrong variable name for this, didn't we? Yes, we did. Oh my gosh. Cool. Assign interval days. I just don't want to reuse that. So interval D. Let's just be kinder to ourselves here. Okay, I said a minute ago that I was going to explain why I was using HTML. Well, I mean, I'm using HTML so as to give us an actual bulleted list, but I guess specifically what I'm not doing is formatting this email using just normal white space like this to separate paragraphs. We can do that. Mechanic has Lightward itself has a new line to BR filter that we could use to convert all the line breaks into HTML line breaks. We often use that when we're building emails, but because we actually care about the HTML that creates this email, we're not going to take that route. We're going to be explicit about everything. So for order in qualifying order, what do we want to use here? We want to use order dot, okay, here's a fun thing. Here's the place where we actually fetch the customer. And before I show you how that works, I'm going to go take a look at the GraphQL, the bulk operation data that came back. So here we've got our echo. We have our list of objects, which is an array. The first one is of type customer, and it contains a customer. Oh, the last order is a property. Got it. Okay, cool. So I anticipated this list to have two items in it, one customer and one order. That is not what happened here, which is fine. That just means we go reformat. What I was planning on doing is, like I said, I was planning to scan all of these objects, filtering for just things of type order, and then what I was going to do is trace back up to the customer. What I intended to demonstrate was that each object coming back from bulk operation has a parent ID attribute. And Mechanic allows you to just skip the ID and receive the actual parent. So what I could have done was say order.parent.email in order to get the customer's email address. However, because there's no parent ID on this order object, and in fact, because it's just a property of the customer itself, none of that even makes sense. So let's go back and reformat a little bit, or refactor a little bit. That's super informal. I'm kind of okay with it. All right, so here we are. Qualifying orders doesn't work. So what we're going to do is say qualifying customers for customer in order. Oh, that was a typo anyway, so that would never have worked until I fixed it. All right, so for customer in bulk operation.objects, customer.last order created at. And then we're talking about customers, not orders. Cool. And that reads more nicely anyway. Instead of counting orders and calling them customers, we're counting customers and calling them customers. That's good. So we have objects. We can just call this that. Customer is this. Qualifying customers is now this, and I'm going to run this again. Well, I mean, we're close enough that I'll probably actually echo this out too. So, all right, what do we have going on here? We have no longer any need to include type name, so I'm going to remove that for order and qualifying order. Okay. So we have, okay. Focus, focus, focus. All right, so we have a customer that's coming back for customer in qualifying customers. What we're going to print out is, we're going to start with the customer's display name. right? That's what that was called. Customer display name. We don't have a guarantee that that's actually going to exist. So we're going to say customer display name and with a default of unnamed. Actually, maybe we'll default it to the customer's email address. No, I want to include that separately. I want to include that here, customer.email. Okay. And then I want to include information about their order. And I'm going to link up this to the Shopify admin, ahref. Okay. And then the email address, and then I want to include information about the last order. I like to use these dashes. They feel good in this context. Okay, cool. So we have the customer's email address, and then customer.last_order, because we now know that this is just an attribute of the customer that comes back. Customer.last_order.name was what this was, and we're going to link this up as well. Yeah, we can do that. Orders/customer.last_order. Okay. And we're going to say that was some number of days ago, I think. Is that how I want to do this? I could at least do customer.last_order.created@. Ooh, so I just had a brief wondering. Shopify makes a distinction between processed@, and created@. Created@ is always the time when it entered Shopify's database, whereas processed@ could include backdated orders. I'm wondering if last order is informed by processed@ or by created@. I'm going to leave that as an outstanding question, and if and when a merchant informs me that this isn't working properly, we will reevaluate. But that's an open question that I have. All right, customer.last_order.created@ times, no, not times, date. Nope, not JSON, force of habit. Okay. It feels more complete to include the number of days since this particular order. So I'm going to calculate that separately, I think. Maybe not. We have now in, okay. My process. I need now in seconds in order to make this work. So I'm going to say that, and I can just reuse it. So now we have now. We have this value in seconds as an integer. Minus now s. This is going to be a negative number because this will always be larger than this number. So really what I'm doing here is adding some extra code to make this a one-liner. Times -1 divided by 60 seconds in a minute divided by 60 minutes in an hour. Come on. Divided by 24 hours in a day. All right, and that should work, even though it's really long. Cool, and that should be our entire list item. If the merchant wants to change this, they totally can. So that'll be our email, and then we're going to email it to a place. What place will we email it to? insert an email action, which throws it in at the end. Let's cut this out and put it up where it belongs. Oh, potions again. Okay, so that's where it's going to go. Email subject. Yeah, that feels right. And then our body is going to be email body. And my instinctual habit here, well, it's now an instinct, my habit is to convert to that and maybe that. But because we formatted this using HTML intentionally, there's no additional processing necessary. We're just going to do that. Sweet. Cool, and then we need an email for when no customers are found. And this will look similar. Except not as complicated. Email body, sorry, I'm blanking here. Here's actually where we'll probably use those additional filters I talked about. And we can be helpful here about specificity. Here's our required tag. We didn't find any customers tagged this. Was it interval D, I think? Yep, interval D. And now that I'm looking at this, I have like a space here instead. Okay. Now note, I haven't formatted this in HTML at all. I can shortcut my way there by saying unindent, new line to BR. Voila! I'll probably actually strip this first. So it has to get rid of this white space and this white space. So we unindent. This one is specific to mechanic, by the way. This doesn't exist in Shopify, I don't believe. So we unindent, we strip, we convert new lines to line breaks in HTML, format the whole thing as JSON for the sake of our action, and we're good to go. So this might actually, we might actually be done functionally with this thing. We have one super important step left, which is not to do the thing which I'm about to do. This felt like a good idea, so I'm going to put this up here. That worked out pretty well. Okay, cool. All right, so we save, we added in our configuration. Absent customers reports. I am interested in sending an email. Okay, cool. So here is, tagged of note. Actually, I think I want that in quotes. Yep, I like that. My opinion on phrasing always changes. We have a line break there. Cool. I thought we would be able to get away. Actually, didn't think it through too far. We didn't find any customers having 0 orders placed in the last 30 days. Thanks. Cool. I'm going to say 0 customers found instead of no customers found. Where's my subject? Cool. Here's an echo. Okay, cool. So here's the next thing that we need to do, besides maybe check to see if our GraphQL thing came back. Is this different than what we had requested before? No, it is not. Okay. So I'm going to run this to do a production, quote unquote, test for it. An important part of task writing is to make sure that preview actions are always rendered over here on the right. And we see preview action here, and we see preview action here. But as a merchant looking at this is actually not the preview action that I want to see. I want to see what the email will look like when we actually have customers that are found. And I don't care about this. This is just for testing. So in order to achieve our goal here, there are 2 ways to do this. There's a right way and there's a wrong way. And I'm explaining the wrong way first because I started out my story with Mechanic doing it the wrong way. And you might as well. And just in case, I'm going to talk about why it's the wrong way. And also wrong is in big, massive air quotes because it actually has purposes sometimes. So the wrong way, quote unquote again, is to simply say if qualifying customers is not empty or it's event preview. And actually, if we're doing it the, again, quote, wrong way, I prefer to do this over here. If we're looking at a preview event, then we'll render this email instead. Because the event.preview property is always true if we are running in this context over here. It will never be true with a real live event. So because we have this here, we now have this email rendered instead of this email rendered. Oops. This is good, but not perfect for 2 reasons. One, we've cheated our way past all of this logic, which means that in preview mode, none of this actually matters, which means that we could have glaring bugs over here that we have no idea about in this stage. The other thing that's wrong with this is that, what's the other thing that's wrong with this? Oh, the other thing that's wrong with this is that this doesn't actually show us any customers. It says 0 customers, and then we have no list right here. Which means that in order to make this look complete, we would need to do like another if event.preview and then render some stuff that's only for event preview, which is gross. Now you might say, given the code that I was just starting to write here, you might say, oh, what if in preview mode we just reset our list of qualifying customers? Haha, you are very smart. We are now on our way to the right approach for this. So the right approach is to set up data that only exists in preview mode so that the task can do what it normally would do for real data, or if it had live data. So we could create a new array of qualifying customers and say, here's our set of qualifying customers. But the right thing to do is to move back even further and say, in preview mode, we're going to create a new set of bulk operation objects, a brand new set. And we're going to do that above this. And we do that so that all of this code can still be exercised. Wrapping it up, if we set up our preview data at the very top, and if it overwrites the stuff that we would normally have in live mode, then our preview mode actually becomes a test mode, or basically a test mode. It's like we've written tests for the thing, and the test is this preview itself. So to bring that home, I'm gonna save my changes. Don't know if I made any. Here's our bulk operation. And here's our echo. Okay, cool. This is the part that I am, well, I mean, this is interesting too. We found 0 customers, which is good, I think. How many days ago was this person's order? 6 days ago. Okay, cool. So yes, this order is correct. Our only customer who has placed orders in this store did in fact place an order in the last 30 days, so they don't qualify, so 0 customers found. What I'm actually interested in right now is this. We have this array right here containing our customer and, oh, okay, this is a structure. I echoed up 3 things. An array of objects, which is this chunk, and I'm highlighting it because I want it for later. We have our customer that came back and our qualifying customer set, which is empty. I think this is a typo. It should have been customers plural. No qualifying customers because, as we said, this customer did place an order within the last 30 days. So I'm going to copy this right here, copy. We're going to go back to our task script because we can reuse and adapt that chunk of JSON for our bulk operation.objects array. So right up here at the very top, we're going to overwrite the bulk operations object. And another nice thing about this approach is that the preview related stuff only happens at the very beginning of the task. Nowhere down here is polluted with event.preview information, which is perfect because the programmer who follows me here, always assume that someone else will succeed you. The programmer that follows me here will be able to say, oh, there's preview related stuff. It's only happening up here. And everything else continues as normal. The rest of this code has no idea that there's a preview happening. Everything that's preview related is only up here, which reduces confusion in the long term because there's only one contextual adjustment happening and it's only in one place. So what we're doing is building up our bulk operations array. So we're going to say assign bulk operation equals hash, brand new hash, totally from scratch. And this is how assignment works in Mechanics Liquid. Not array. We're going to capture this as a string and then parse it. So we're going to say objects JSON. All right, two notes. This situation and this situation are both unique to Mechanic. I've extended Liquid, the language, and I've extended it to allow for the initialization and assignment into hashes and arrays. It makes programming and this stuff much more pleasurable. So this is going to happen down at the end, and here we are going to capture objects JSON. Okay, sweet. Actually going to move this down here too, keep everything together. Cool. So we have bulk operations. We have an array of test data, and I'm going to make this not about me. Okay, and then this is the last piece that we need to think about. So we need to make sure that whatever this value is, it is always before the beginning end of the interval that the merchant defined. So what I'm going to do is say, well, first I'm going to do is move all of this up here. I don't love putting this above event.preview, but I guess it's okay. We're setting up constants, functionally constants that we use in the rest of the task. And we're going to use them in here as well. So I'm okay with putting this above the preview block. Don't love it, but I'm okay with it. So what we're going to say is now in seconds minus the interval in seconds that the merchant has configured. And we're going to subtract just a little bit more off of it. So we're going to say minus 5 days. 5 days times 24 hours times 60 minutes times 60 seconds is that much. Minus that. And we're going to format that as a date. T, and then I think this is how this works. No, it's that. And then a Z at the end, right, for UTC? Yeah. Cool. Okay, believe that's right. There are a ton of resources out there if you ever forget. Format Ruby, sure. Including the Ruby documentation itself. I don't like API doc. Here's some sites that exist explicitly for this purpose. This one I've used. I accidentally clicked on it. Okay, it's fine. It contains the same data. So capital H for hour of the day and 24-hour clock. Minute of the hour, capital M, capital S for seconds of the minute. So I got that part wrong. Right, because lowercase s is the number of seconds. Cool. So now we have a customer who has definitely placed an order before the end of the interval. And we've loaded this into a new preview-only bulk operation object under the objects property, which means that if I close out of this, and if I've done everything right, which I haven't quite, it should just work. And it looks like the thing that I got wrong was JSON formatting. Yeah, I'm just spitting out this whole thing as a... I didn't even close the tag. Wow, I was just done. All right, cool. Absent customers report, 1 customers. Perfect. Except something didn't quite work. They did qualify, but the name isn't working. So display name, email, also that value is completely wrong. So that tells me that something is going on down here, maybe? For customer and qualifying customers. I wonder what went wrong. So let's do this. This is another nice aspect of the approach that I'm describing, wherein we use preview mode to instantiate new data that's only for preview. It means we get to catch bugs right here when the preview is right here and the code is right here. It's way faster to iterate this way than it is to write some code, hit run, wait a minute for the bulk operation to come back, check the results, repeat. Much, much faster to do it this way. So to test what's going on here, I'm going to say echo qualifying customers. And we just have null here. So we know that it's probably this line right here where we're adding onto the array. Yep, I forgot to replace this. We're not looking at order, we're looking at customer. So this immediately leaps into place, which means that this probably works. Hell yeah. We have alpha beta, customer at example.com, and then our order number. Now I note that we have an extra space here, which means that we need to adjust our HTML. But as I'm looking at this also, I don't love the number of punctuation elements that are happening here. I don't love this extra parentheses, don't love this. So yeah, I'm gonna assume that the vast majority of the time, this task will be used to like with an interval value that's greater than 1, which means that this will always be plural, always most of the time. Actually, I wonder if Liquid has a pluralize filter. I don't remember offhand. It does. Wonderful. Count, pluralize. Okay, cool. But it doesn't include this by itself, so we need to include that. All right. I was thinking about avoiding this, but let's be thorough and let's not avoid it. Let's get our echo out of the way. It, in this case, is pluralization. I was cheating my way past that by using the parentheses S construction. But honestly, that's pretty fundamentally lazy. So we're not going to do that. So here's our number of days. We're going to sign that up here. And you would be correct to raise an eyebrow at the way I've capitalized this, but I'm standing by it. Last order is a property of the customer, and the rest of this is going to be camel case, and I've decided that I feel good about this. So, last order days ago, pluralize days. There, that is the right way to do that. And I've decided that I didn't like these parentheses, and also we found out that the A was wrapping around, or the link was wrapping around this space. So we're going to bring this onto one line. Same thing here. All right, let's see how I feel about that presentation. Expand preview. Alpha beta, customerexample.com, order 100. Close. Okay, so I want to add a word here. I want to add the word on. On such and such a day. I'm actually going to break this up onto 2 lines. Last ordered. I'm experimenting here. I care a lot about language and how it is read. I do want to include that order link. Last ordered on, maybe I'll put it in the parentheses at the end of this. Does that feel right? Maybe if I put a dash in. That feels pretty good. Yeah, let's go with that. Okay. By the way, if you're curious, I'm bringing up this keyboard by pressing Control Command Space. I'm on a Mac. That's how that works. Other machines will have different ways to invoke that. And this specifically is an N dash. I use them kind of a lot. Okay. Okay, cool. I'm happy about that. Not happy about this, because if you're not going to be lazy, you should not be lazy everywhere. And this one's actually going to be even easier to put into place. So I'm glad I checked. Pluralize. Nope. Pluralize. Okay, and then the last one to pluralize is the subject itself, which is constructed where? Right here, the subject. Okay. I could do this in one line, but it would be messy and weird and hard to follow, so I'm not going to. I'm going to say, here's what I'm going to say. Subject is before the body in that construction, so we're going to do that up here. Okay, and now I'm realizing this basically is the same as the other subject that we constructed for the email in which no customers are found. So I'm going to move this out of this if block so I can share it with this other email down here. Now there is white space around this capture right here. I could do this, but I honestly prefer not to. I'm not sure why. I think because it would be the only place in a script where that would be a thing. If you're not familiar, if I throw a dash on here, the Liquid engine will just eat this white space for me. I don't love that technique here, so what I'm going to do instead is just strip it in this place using the Liquid filter. The result will be the same. So, absent customers report 1 customer found. The following, one more pluralization piece. The following 1 customers. Didn't I just do this right here? Yeah. That's a double number. Okay, the following 1 customer, the following 1 customer tagged of note. They all only make sense if there are several. Also, that's not in quotes the way that the other email has it in quotes. After searching for, I'm just going to rephrase to make this make more sense. Filtering for customers tagged the following X customers were found to have not placed an order in the last several days. That language is a little bit elaborate, but it does work. Filtering for customers tagged of note, the following 1 customer were found to have not placed an order in the last 30 days. Okay, cool. So we're going to also fix that piece of grammar. All right, the following 1 customer was found to have not placed an order in the last 30 days. Awesome. I hope you can see how useful it is to use preview data in this case, so you can always have something useful to work with over here. It's the test loop. So fast, so tight. Okay. So we're going to do a little bit more testing in this phase. I want to demonstrate that all of the controls that we've created actually work. So first of all, let's test to make sure that this does the thing that I expect it to do. Yep, I'm looking down here. If I adjust this value, our test data continues to work. So this is the last 15 days. And up here, we're in our event preview block. We're saying it was created just before the interval. If I instead add to the interval, we should drop to, yep, having 0 orders placed in the last 15 days. Perfect. If I uncheck this, that email should go away. Yep, no preview actions for this run. That's perfect. All right. Now, what happens if I add a second customer to this preview list? Will they be, yep, 2 customers found. So we are pluralizing. Filtering for customers tagged of note. The following 2 customers were found to have not placed an order in the last 15 days. Perfect, perfect, perfect. If I move this one out of bounds, yep, we drop down to 1. Awesome. Okay, we're done. We've tested every scenario. I guess the only other scenario that we haven't tested is no customers. Yep, perfect. Okay, awesome. We've tested everything. We've filled in a thing here that seems sane, absent customers report, and that works right here. This thing works here. I guess the other thing that I'll do is say, let's add, purely for the sake of demonstration, let's add a little bit of validation here. Right now this will work even if you include a negative number. Let's just not do that, just to show you one more thing about mechanic. We can say, if interval d is smaller than or equal to 0, cool. Ta-da, and this will prevent the task from being saved. 0. That's going to be a validation error because it's required. 5. Perfect. All right, phenomenal. It's going to take me a minute to come up with a name for this task that is not super long, so I'm not going to do this while I'm actually recording. But thank you for being here. Thank you for doing whatever it is you're doing. I believe in you, and I believe in what we're all doing here together. If you have any questions about what's happening here, drop me a line. Mechanic itself has this chat thing, which I am almost directly wired up to. Otherwise, hit me up any number of ways. You have my email address, but please don't use it. Instead, use that. Cool. Love you. Have a fantastic day. And yeah, cheers. Actually, just forgot something. This will only run when the task is manually triggered. The point of this, I think, was to send a regular report. They actually weren't specific about this, but I want this to be able to be sent regularly. So what we're going to do is enable Liquid for subscriptions and say if options.send email automatically every send email daily. Yeah, that'll work. Mechanic scheduler daily. And what we could do instead is that was a weird way to go about that. I was trying to think if I could combine these in some way, but no. Send email every Monday. Okay, cool. And this way, folks will be able to, I'm looking for another event to show up here, and it does, but there are no actions here because this is only paying attention to the trigger. This is the part where we generate and dispatch the bulk query. So if the event topic is mechanic use trigger or event.topic contains mechanic/scheduler, there we go. So every day at midnight, we generate this query, pass it off. When the bulk operation finishes, we're here. If we do it daily, then we will, if we do it every Monday, right? Yep, if we do it every Monday, then every Monday at midnight in our local time zone, we've got this as well. Now we've got a bunch of queries happening right now. I'm going to reorder these so that even though this is the last event to actually trigger, this is the one that merchants will actually, like has a preview that the merchant will actually want to see. So I'm putting that first so that it shows up first in this list. Cool. All right, now we are actually done. Have a fantastic day. Talk to you soon.